so much things that we think about. I think a bit more than America.
Yeah.
And even these things get to happen.
I know, but
always.
nobody's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's still capitalism.
Yeah, no, what you have there is you have a crack in the system. And I would actually say that you need to leave that crack in the system. Because it's better for one guilty man to go free than for an innocent man to be jailed.
Yeah, you need to trust in the system, and the system works more often.
Right. But again, what happened in that situation is, you're right, he had lots of money, but he also had the name recognition, which is why I want the judge to not know necessarily who the individuals are in the court case. Because you'll hear in America, especially all the time, they're like, Your Honor, let my client out on bail. He's a outstanding member of
society.
Yeah,
he gives to charity.
Yeah.
He has to work on a movie.
Right.
He's got to do his concert tour.
He does all this good stuff for the community. And I would argue that, well, if what he's being accused of is true, none of that matters. Because he's actually a detriment to society.
Why aren't you a judge?
Because the law is an opinion. And it's an opinion typically. It is. As much as you don't like it, the law is an opinion.
No, yeah, but I think judges always go for the evidence and not really the see.
Darling, you're so naive. They don't. They don't.
I would actually say that most of the
they
time.
don't. Not in America.
I mean, well, no, there have been situations in America, because I often read the Supreme Court briefings that they do on some, whatever. But I would actually say that a lot of the time the judges do their due diligence. It's only when you have judges that have an agenda or an opinion that they're trying to push that's when that becomes an issue.
They're playing for the cameras and they have celebrity clients.
Yes. I completely agree. And unfortunately, the system obviously isn't doing a very good job of weeding those individuals out.
No, they're not. But the most public don't keep up with the incumbent judges.
But that you can see also as a crack in the system. A few judges who are...
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, too, is that because America's a capitalist society, if someone decides to be, super good at their job, but for all the wrong reasons and push the wrong agenda, they're allowed to continue to do that. And I have no idea on how to fix that, because you want good people in your system, you want to reward those good people, but you have to let some bad people through, so I'm not sure how to fix that.
Yeah, I think that's just a general problem. We need to deal with it another way than we tried.
I would actually say that most systems in America need to be maybe not scrapped, but some of them definitely need to be scrapped and just rebuilt from the ground up.
Yeah, but I have the same thing in Europe, but in America it actually happened. In Europe everything grew historically, but you guys came here and you built up a system from the ground, so that happened, and still you have the same kind of problems. So I think we need to solve it in a different way now.
So the problem that America has, obviously, is because we were Europeans, a lot of our ideas came from Europe and from European systems that were already established. We tried to improve on those systems. The problem with America is that it stopped trying to improve on I mean, obviously in Europe, Europeans a lot of the time don't want anything new. They're like, oh, that's not tradition, right? Anytime something new comes in, they say, that's not tradition. We don't want to do that. In America, we don't really have tradition, but we're supposed to be innovative. We're supposed to be trying these new systems. But you have this weird case in America now where it's like, well, that's not what the Founding Fathers wanted. That's not what the Founding Fathers... They're starting to go to tradition instead of actually trying to find something. Because obviously, nothing is perfect. You need to constantly be trying to improve it. But America is coming to the point now where...
It's regression.
It's regression. It's tradition. We need to keep that because that's how it's
But it's the same thing to me. It's elitism. It's the dominant culture, which is European culture, trying to keep their hold and their foot on the neck of people of color and getting cheap labor. Yeah. Come on, man. And keep their land. Come on, man.
No, I would definitely say that. But again, that's because of the weird... Like, think about this idea for a second. If you're born in America, does that entitle you to own land in America?
No, I'm talking about the people who had generational wealth.
No, that I agree. So most people... I've known several people that were communists, right? And I would say they make absolutely 0 sense compared to Karl Marx himself. Karl Marx makes more sense than any communist I've ever met.
I don't know who that is.
Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto?
I know it's theory, but it's an ideal. It's not working out.
It's not working out. But again, like I said, Karl Marx makes more sense than any communist I've ever talked to. And one thing that he says is that in nature, this is my interpretation of his idea, basically in nature, right, you train your offspring on all the techniques that you use to be successful. and then after you die, that offspring uses those techniques, and if they're good, that offspring survives. If they're bad, that offspring dies, right? And that's kind of natural selection. What Karl Marx says is that here, I can be a complete and total useless dumbass, but if my parents had enough money, they pass on not techniques, but resources to me. So even if I don't know what the hell I'm doing, I can be good and survive and pass on my stupidity because I have all these extra resources. So that's a problem that I would say is actually part of our economic system, is that you have people, instead of passing on techniques that make people good business leaders, good politicians, good whatever, they just pass on their wealth and resources to these individuals, and they never have to become successful members of society.
You're explaining Donald Trump. His dad gave him $1 million.
I'm explaining Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
All of them.
So what was his solution?
So Karl Marx's solution was that no one should own personal property, which is where you get communism. I'm actually against that. I would say that the issue is that America needs to have a system that's a progressive tax system on handing wealth down to your offspring. So I mean, if you're really good at what you do, you'll be successful. And wealthy people already have a jump on that success. There's no reason why a wealthy individual can't send their kids to the best schools in the world and give them the best possible advantage. Why do they also need to inherit all of these resources that they haven't earned?
But you said, like, if you're an American, do you need to own land?
Yeah.
Well, do you need to own land, and in general, need to own land?
So
land is it owned? Because you pay for it, but it's just land, right? So it could be like general. It could be for everything. It could be a park in a city. It could be
right. So the reason I bring that up is because typically in our Congress, the U.S. Congress operates on an agricultural schedule. That's why it only works so many days of the year. That's why it has so many days off on vacation. It's because typically landowners held power because they grow all the food that everyone else eats. So obviously these people were thought to have more power. They needed more power. But what happens is that in America nowadays, farming is actually, it's not as democratic as it used to be. There's less farmers now than what ever used to be. Manufacturing took over in America as opposed to agriculture. So what happens is you can be born in America and you can live your whole life in America without ever owning an ounce of land. You know, you can join the military, fight for your country, die for your country, and you'll never own part of your country. I mean, I agree with people that say America is more of an idea than a place or a people, but the idea that these people might not have a chance to ever make something of themselves. They might be renters their whole life, or they might be, borrowers their whole life, or they might, a lot of our veterans that come back here become homeless. They live on the streets, they have mental problems, and no one helps them. Even though in America, we're all gung-ho for our military, but we often let them down repeatedly. And that's why I bring up that idea. Just because you're born into a country, should you own land in that country? Are you given that right? In America, that's no. At the same time, though, I'm not sure how to correct that either.
I'm going to stop it here. Oops, I put my finger there. That's really good, though.